So here we are. This is 141 Cryptography, and we're down to the third chapter, which is explaining what cryptographic security is, and then we'll start going into detailed ciphers. So that should be here. All right, so cryptographic security, let me clean this up a little. All right, so we're going to talk about what you want is you want it to be impossible for someone to get in without the key. So you have to define what would be impossible, and then we can talk about various security goals you can have and things that can go wrong. So how do you ever prove that anything is impossible? This is in fact something mathematicians love to do. They prove that a solution exists or that a solution doesn't exist for a problem, and it would be nice if our cryptography was that strong, but it absolutely is not. We do not have that kind of cryptography. So informational security is what you would like, where you prove it is theoretically impossible for anybody to ever break into this system. You can't have that. What you typically have is practical impossibility, where you say, well, the fastest known algorithm would take more cycles than there was enough time to do it, so in practice nobody can get in. This is about all you really get. So informational security would mean even if somebody had unlimited computation power and time, they still couldn't get in. And I guess I'll shut that door. He's going away. All right. Anyway, so all right. So if they're in principle, some attack would work even if it takes forever. You call it informationally insecure. And so the one-time pad is the only example of a perfect system. It is informationally secure. Even if you had all the computers in the world and all the time in the world, you would never crack something encrypted with a one-time pad, because each letter in the pad encrypts one letter in the plain text, and so you would have to just change every letter to every possible value and change the next letter to every possible value, and you would generate every possible series of letters, including every possible message, and there's no way to tell which one is right. This has been for hundreds of years accepted as a good argument that this is the informationally secure technique. If the one-time pad is really random, there is no way to break it except to steal that pad. And of course, if you only use it once, as we did last time, if you use the same pad twice, that ruins everything. But if you only use it once, there is no information in the ciphertext that gives you any clue how to break it. So that's fine. So if you could overcome the key distribution problem, which is large, then the one-time pad would be perfect. And essentially all the cryptographic systems we're using are an attempt to simulate the one-time pad. We're going to see that. You create a key stream to encrypt stuff with, but instead of having to distribute that much data, you distribute a small key, which you use to generate a key stream, which is almost random, but not perfect. All right, so in practice, you settle for computational security, which means you make some assumption about how much time, memory, hardware power, and money your attacker has. You can then figure out whether they could reasonably crack in. So AES 128 is currently computationally secure because the only way to break in by brute force would be to try every possible key, and there's 2 to the 128 of them, and 2 to the 128 is a really, really big number. All the computers in the world running for all the time in the world could not do that many calculations. So that's fine. The problem is different hardware might help, and quantum computers. If quantum computers existed, and if they were millions of times better than any that exist now, they do technically exist now, but only in an early prototype state, then a quantum computer would only have to do 2 to the 64 operations to try all those keys, and that might be doable. So in principle, in like 30 or 40 years, quantum computers might get good enough to break AES 128, which is the standard kind everybody uses. At that point, it will cease being computationally secure. This might seem unimportant, but it isn't, because one issue about encrypted data is if you encrypt data and store it on a server, is it okay if somebody gets in that data 10 or 20 or 50 years in the future? And sometimes you don't care, like if it's just your payroll, who really cares? But if it's like your health records, like your DNA test showing that you have a genetic disease that's going to be passed on to your children and grandchildren, you probably don't want that coming out even in 50 years, even in 100 years. So you'd really like to encrypt it with something that you know will be secure for 100 years, and that's a big challenge, because you have to guess what the future improvements will be. In practice, AES 256 would be a pretty good answer, because AES 256, even on the perfect quantum computer, would take 2 to the 128 calculations, and that's out of range. So that, unless somebody finds a new algorithm, and you can't mathematically prove that that won't happen, that's the problem. You don't know that somebody won't find a shortcut, and in fact, they did with some versions of AES. Anyway, so here's the definition. It's tau epsilon secure if it requires, guess I need an I here. requires this many calculations and this probability of success. So if there isn't any shortcut for AES 128, then it would be secure for any time between 1 and 2 to the 128. So 128-bit security means if you try one key, you only have 1 in 2 to the 128 chance. If you try 2 to the 64 keys, you have 1 in 2 to the 64 chance of getting in. If you try this much time, 2 to the 128 cycles, then you will always get in. So you just have to make sure this time is more time than you have available. All right. So then you can quantify security, so you can measure it in bits. If you want a success probability of 1, an attack will require T operations. So n bits of security means it will do 2 to the n operations to crack. So AES 128, if it's perfect and there's no mathematical flaw, then it will take, it's 128 bits of security, which means somebody has to guess 128 random bits to get in, and that is impossible. Even 100 random bits is more than anybody can guess in all the time in the world and all the computers in the world. So now this doesn't consider how much time it takes to do one calculation. It's just a rough measure. All right. So WEP, for example. WEP, the stronger version of wired equivalent privacy, had a 104-bit key. So that would have been fine if it took 2 to 104 calculations to crack. That would have been perfectly secure, but it turned out there were serious mathematical weaknesses in WEP, so you didn't really have to try all the keys. So the first crack brought it down to 2 to the 20, which is not enough at all, and later on they got it down to 2 to the 15, which is why it's ridiculous, and I used to have this in my security classes where people practice cracking WEP. It doesn't matter anymore. Now pretty much everybody has abandoned WEP, but this is why. It came out in 2000 or so, and within a year they found a weakness, and then they found more weaknesses and more weaknesses. So even though it has 104 bits, it's really only giving you 15 bits of security, which is not enough at all. Even just an ordinary home computer can quickly crack it. Then that's because the key is long enough, but the algorithm has weaknesses, so you don't really have to try every key. Now the substitution cipher that we talked about last time, where you take every letter and substitute, take A and change it to a letter, B and change it to a letter, well then, the first letter can change to 26 possible letters, the next letter can change to 25 letters, of the remaining letters, next one can change to 24. This is 2 to the 88. So the substitution cipher would seem to have 88 bits of security, which is very good. That's almost 100. That would be uncrackable in practice, but you can do it with no computer at all. And here, for example, well, I couldn't find these. When I was a child, these were in the Sunday newspaper, so I just made my own. You have a cartoon here, and there's the cryptography, and you can crack this with no computer at all, even though it's an arbitrary substitution cipher. So let me demonstrate it. Let's get a new page and put it here. So if you put this here, and then you put in some spaces down here just to fill this up. Now, you can crack this thing. Let me make it bigger so people can see it. I did it for both of these earlier today, so it's, make it bigger, okay. It shouldn't be too hard. So now what you do is you use the structure of it. Like here's a single letter. That is got to be an I or an A. Those are pretty much the only options. Now here is an apostrophe followed by something, and here's an apostrophe followed by two different things. So those are pretty guessable. So if I guess that this is an I, then I can start filling in the other I's, and there's one there. And now this can't be I'll, it's pretty much got to be I've, is about the only thing that can finish it there. Two letters that are different. So now I've got the E. Once you've got the E, that's really going to crack a lot of things open. So the D's are E's, and the D's are E's, and here's some more E's, and the exclamation points actually help to the punctuation, so let's fill those in. Oops. Okay. And this one here. All right, now, see what else we can do here. There's another D. Okay, what are the D's? E's? Oh, there's a, good. That's right, and a comma, good. That's right, so it's a comma. All right, good. So see if you spot anything. Now I've, that should be an E where?
third word.
In a third word, there's an E there. Oh, another E, right. Thank you. Good. Good. Okay. Good. All right. Now this,
Let's write V as well, V.
you see another G?
No, V. We have a P as well, is that right?
Okay, let's, a P is a V. Oh, you're right. A P is a V. There's a V here. Oh, good. Well, now I've got a word here ending in EVE. You can probably guess that word. Any guesses? Let me see if there's anybody coming in the Twitch chat here. All right. What is the inspiration for the Mac screen? Mac screen name? No, it doesn't matter. Yep, that's right. Believe. That's what I was thinking. It's kind of obvious that that's believe. And this is the way it works. You guess from the structure, and then you find a word you can guess. If I make this believe, now I got a lot. C is I. There's got to be more of them. Oh, I already knew that. P is V. There probably aren't going to be any more of them. How about L? H is L. There might be more of them. No. How about B? X is, well, I guess I didn't get as much out of that as. What's that? Yeah, no more. Yeah. So, however, I can now probably guess what this word is before I blank believe. I can probably guess this word. Can you guess? I and apostrophe. What's? I don't believe is Hassan. I can't believe, something like that. So that strongly implies this is probably a T. I don't believe or I can't believe. So Z is probably T. And if that's true, there'll be a lot of them because T is really common. And it looks like there's at least two of them. Yep, I something believe. And so I won't or I can't. And in both cases, this would be an N. So if K is N, and there'll really be a lot of them, that's another common letter. I should, maybe some more N's. All right. And now, so W is an O or an A. What's that?
Let's try and error.
Yeah, I could try it. I just wonder if there's a better shortcut. Another thing that works is double letters. Here's a double letter. I guess the first one, and here's another one. Yep, there's an HH. Well, but I don't think any of those are. You're going to guess this is LL?
You guess the belief. You already guessed it.
Oh, believe. Oh, I have an L. H is L. Oh, good. Thank you. You're right. I already know that H is L.
So well, something.
H is L. You think this is well? That seems likely. Okay. All right. And that's right. Well. So I got ELL. Now I got D is E. All right. Let's see if I can fill anything else in. H is L. All right. Well. All right. I think we have to guess something here. It's got to be I don't, I won't, or I can't. It's pretty much the only options, I think. Let's use can't. And now that gives me W is A. There'll be a lot more of those around. And F is C. There might be some more of them. I don't see any more of them. All right, I can't believe. Wait, there should be, Now, how about this one? I've got enough of that one. Maybe I can guess that word.
Good heavens.
Heavens. Yes, that's what it is. It's heavens. And now I have T going to S, and there's always a lot of S's. So that's really going to open things up. Probably good, right. This bird is probably good. And that means I've got a lot. L is O. There'll be more of them. And this should remind you of the process we did with the one-time pad. Once you find a couple of clues, it cracks like glass, and the clues come faster. So now, this one is probably got to be some, S-O-M-E, I think, is the only thing it can really reasonably be here. So if there's any more J's, and here's another J, and here's G is E, so this is men, and L is O, this is O. So I think you can pretty much, yeah, ALZ is got, exactly. And so the only thing missing is this word here, and I think you can just guess it, it's got to be U. And this one is rope, which you can tell from the actual cartoon, which is another clue, of course. If you bring back the cartoon and put this here, that's the point. They're trying to hang this guy, and she's brought the rope. I can't believe you men, I've got some rope. So this, anyway, this is, that's what you do. This is the process where children can do this.
I'm wondering if ChatGPT can crack that. Can we try? If ChatGPT can crack that?
Wonder if what?
ChatGPT can.
Oh, ChatGPT. Oh, I don't think ChatGPT can do this kind of thing at all. But let's try it. I mean, Google Bard's easier to get to. Let's try that.
Just tell them that it was like assignment by substitution or something.
Well, all right. I don't think these large language models can do this at all, but it's an interesting issue. So let's see, solve this substitute cipher. Bard's probably going to tell me, oh, sure, I can help you. Okay. And decrypting, let's get it, didn't take this one. All right, there we go. Hello, all friends. I'm going to sleep. I saw, and this is what you get. It's just complete garbage, you know, not even close. Sleep. I am going to sleep, which is not even close. That's what you get from large language models, you know, and it just lies. Yep, that's.
This doesn't even match the text.
Not remotely. I am going to sleep doesn't even match the pattern of words at all. That's what I figured. You know, this is what you'll get because it doesn't know what it's doing, and it's terrible at things like math. Yeah, it's a good question. Anyway, all right, so let's go back to here. And I got another one here. I think that it's not worth going through this one, but the same logic will get you here. The same kind of process would solve these. So it shows a weakness. Let's see if there's anything more coming in the Twitch chat. Yep, good. All right, so anyway, so RSA 2048. I was amazed when I learned this stuff. The key is 2,000 bits long. Now, why is that? Why do you need it so long? Well, the reason is, I finally realized, because RSA keys are not random. They are the product of two prime numbers. So it's not just 2048 random bits. And so that limits it. The density of primes I was talking to Kai about last week is not that high. So 2048 bits long only gives you 112 bits of security. That's how much it is. So that's the thing to know. And I actually got in a discussion with the textbook author about this, saying, why isn't it a bigger number? He said 100 is just a rough estimate. Anyway, so the National Institute of Standards special publication defining U.S. government systems has specified rules. And here's what they say. If you have less than 80 bits, that's 1024 gives you 80 bits of security for RSA. 2048 gives you 112, 3072, 128, and so on. And therefore, they no longer recommend using 1024-bit RSA keys. Through 2030, 2048 will be acceptable, but after 2030, they say we really should go up to 3072 or bigger, which is reasonable to follow these things. That's the U.S. government recommendation. Yeah?
To find the prime number, they use something called a Shor algorithm.
Yeah, to find a prime number on a quantum computer. There's a lot of algorithms. We'll do it later in the class. There's a lot of ways to find prime numbers. To find a prime number, they never are that rare, even up at around 1 million. So what you do is you just guess a number, and then you see if it's prime, and then you guess again to see if it's prime. In fact, that's coming up.
They went to an algorithm to find it.
Yeah, this is the algorithm. This is how you find them for this purpose. We'll talk about it in a minute. Anyway, so we'll talk about the attack cost. Issues are whether your attack can be parallelized and whether you can do partial pre-computation and so on. So parallelism shows if I have 2 to the 56 sequential steps, that's much slower than 2 to the 56 independent steps. Because if it's independent, you can use many processors or maybe a GPU or a TPU, and so it'll be much faster. Memory is a big issue. Some algorithms use only a lot of CPU, others use a lot of memory. And so Bitcoin used an algorithm that just required a lot of CPU, and that turned out to not lead to geographic decentralization. It turned out that there are just a few processors in China and now in Texas run the whole system. So to fix that in Ethereum, they made it memory hard, where Ethereum requires a lot of RAM to do the calculation, and therefore it's hard to centralize. That was the plan. Anyway, then there's pre-computation. This is the rainbow tables attack. If you can pre-compute some of the math, then maybe you can crack things a lot faster. And this was true of Windows password hashes before Windows XP. It was a huge problem. You could make a rainbow table of just a few gigabytes, put it in memory, and basically crack any password instantly by just looking at the pre-computed values. So this is called time-memory trade-off. You save time by using more memory. And all right, that's another issue. So that was Windows password hashes. Like I say, you used to be able to crack these pretty easily. You can still do rainbow tables attacks on modern Windows passwords, but it's much less effective. The LM hashes used before Windows XP, you could crack them in 5 minutes on a normal computer, essentially all the time this way. There's online crackers for Windows password hashes too these days. And so another one is, suppose you steal a whole bunch of password hashes, which is very common. You hack into a company, you get all their hashes, you have 1,000 password hashes, then it depends on the algorithm. Windows password hashes use no salt, so you can just search for them all. Modern password hashes like Linux and Apple use a salt, so there's a random character added to every password, and so you really have to crack each one individually. You cannot make a pre-computed table of anything to be useful. That's to stop the rainbow table attack, that you use a random salt in the password. All right, and so there's usually only two choices in practice. 128 bits of security is enough for normal use, 256 bits for high security. That's about all it's worth using. Anything less than that is not safe, and 128 is good enough for most purposes, and 256 if you're the military or otherwise paranoid. That gives you a reasonable security margin. That's the levels of security that people use in practice. So let's take a look at it. Couldn't machine learning be used to train AI to do that specific task? It's an interesting question, Joseph. I highly doubt it, because I think mathematical tasks are what AI is not good at. But you could be right. You certainly could probably design an algorithm carefully and then train it. But in fact, using machine learning training to teach people it's a good question, and I do not know the answer. It's something to decipher codes. I'm skeptical, but we'll see.
What they can do is that, for example, some AIs can write code, so
Yeah.
they can write algorithms to crack, and they can execute those algorithms.
That's right. That they could write the algorithm. Yes, that's true. So wonder how the security strength is calculated. Well, the security strength is, I'm afraid, calculated by assuming a certain algorithm. That's the problem. I mean, for example, the RSA encryption scheme relies, go back to RSA there. RSA is the product of two prime numbers, P and Q. Now, if there was a way to factor a large number into its component primes efficiently, RSA would be cracked. So and there have been various algorithms used for that. Brute force was an old technique, then there came the sieve of Eratosthenes, then there came the general number field sieve, then there came another one. So in fact, this is the problem. This is what happened to WEP. If the mathematicians find a faster crack, then it will be less secure. So that calculation of 100 bits means, I think, approximately 2 to the 100 calculations using the current best system. And somebody might invent a better system, and there's no proof that there isn't a better system. So that's why all of our cryptography rests on kind of a weak foundation. It's a real important issue. These are good questions. You don't really know that it's secure. Some mathematician could have a shortcut that breaks in, and you don't have any way to prove that's not true. Anyway, let's try a Kahoot. This is 3A. So cryptography is not a very pure or clean system at all. It's really just a matter of scrambling something enough that, as far as we know, the bad guys aren't getting in. It's not like you have really high security confidence of that. Of course, this is true of all levels of security. I mean, how do you know nobody's going to break in your house and steal your stuff or attack you on the street? That probability is not zero. You issue controls to where you lower it to an acceptable level, and that's what we've done with this mathematical cryptography. I originally had hoped that the mathematical cryptography might be more perfectly secure, but that is not really true. It's not qualitatively different than the other aspects of security. It's just a rule of thumb and a moving target and an approximation. So, the NSA's guidance about the RSA length is really just sort of a government recommendation and an opinion based on the experts. It's not like it's absolutely true or proven or anything. All right, let's give it a shot. All right, so how secure is AES 128, which is the million cipher most people use for everything these days? It is computationally secure, which means that in practice, we don't think anybody can get in any reasonable amount of time, in any available amount of time on any current computer. All right, what type of security does not change as technology improves? Yeah, informationally secure. And the question I see in Twitch is quite relevant. They say, what about the data being swept up that might get cracked later? If we had an informationally secure cryptographic system, then it wouldn't matter. You could scoop up the data and try 100 years from now, you still wouldn't get in. If it's only computationally secure, then that trick might work. If you just hold on to it for a while, then you develop better computers, then you get in. And like I say, if you develop better quantum computers, you might very well be able to open the AES-128 encrypted data someday. But the one-time pad encrypted data, we will never be able to crack, even if we wait 1,000 years. The only possible way to get in would be to steal the pad. Of course, you might hope that you'll have a chance to steal the pad later. That could happen, but that's not really a mathematical attack. Anyway. All right, how many bits of security does AES-128 provide? Right now, it is considered to give you 128 bits, which means there is no known attack that is a shortcut. But remember, WEP 104 had a 104-bit key, but it did not provide 104 bits of security, not for long. Before long, people found shortcuts and lowered it down to 20 or 15 bits, so that's the problem. It's 128 right now because there is no known shortcut. All right, how long should an RSA key be to be strong enough for normal use now? An important issue in practical uses. Right now, 2048 is considered strong enough, but within about 7 years, we're supposed to upgrade to 3072, or bigger, of course. All right, what cost is intentionally large to make Ethereum mining more secure? Ethereum is memory hard. It's specifically designed to consume a lot of memory to mine in an attempt to cause it to geographically spread around the world. Here we go. CCSF rule.